Forged by the fires of our trials, refined by God's craftsmanship. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Virilis podcast. I'm Charlie Olson.
And I'm Tyler Wiest, and we are happy to be here to be speaking with you because this is our first podcast. And in our first podcast, we're here to tell you all about why we started this thing and what this thing is. But as the person who is called by God to do this, I'm going to give it back to Charlie.
So, putting me on the spot, the reason we're doing this podcast, what called me to do it is Tyler and I were talking about how there's a culture of men today that are really lost. And I know because I was one of them. So what called me to do this is that I spent a lot of my life really chasing my own tail without any type of purpose. And since I was getting a lot older at some point, I knew that I had to make a change. And it was to a point where I was called by God to have a relationship with him with circumstances that he knew how to reach me. And it eventually led to this point. Now, those of you who are men, either you're coming of age or you're grown men trying to find your way, there is hope for you. I know you may feel broken. We know you may feel broken, but nothing is impossible with God. And what drew me to this was the inspiration of the eagle. The story behind it is, in the animal kingdom, the eagle is the only member of its family that is capable of living 70 years in the wild. But when it reaches 40, it has to make a painful but essential decision. Its beak becomes bent and blunt. Its claws become the same way, and its feathers become weak. It won't be able to fly or as fast as it would like to survive. If it doesn't hunt, it won't eat, and then eventually it will die. So it makes the decision to begin the painful molting process, which takes several months, and it's very, very painful. It retires to a isolated spot, mostly in the mountains, and it starts by plucking out the weak feathers from its body, and then it breaks its beak and its claws against the rocks. Over the course of several months, new feathers, a new beak, and new claws grow in its place. Why am I telling you this? You can choose to be the better version of yourself that God always intended you to be, but the old version of yourself has to die first. So our hope for this podcast is to help you get a steer in the right direction towards the better version of yourself, God willing.
That's a beautiful metaphor and a beautiful illustration that you painted. And you didn't mention this, but you actually do share something in common with these bald eagles. And
yeah, I'm turning 40 myself, so I thought to myself, this could definitely be something that many men who can relate to, because the clock is running, we're not getting any younger, and we still have some lead in our pencils, so we want to make sure that we write a story that is worth mentioning to the people in our circle.
Yeah. Look at this man and these beautiful metaphors.
Stop.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, putting you on the spot, what is something you'd like to add about this?
Well, I have a calling as well. Charlie hasn't mentioned this yet in this episode, but he and I have a story that has us intertwined in very unique ways, and God has put us together in very unique ways. And there are some things that have happened in our life historically that is closely tied us together. And one thing that has just happened recently is a few months ago, he shared this idea with me, and I'm like, wait a second, hold on. You're telling me this idea and expecting us to just not do this? And God put a big calling in my heart to work on this with Charlie, specifically because I've fallen victim to something a lot of believers fall victim to. And that's when God puts a big calling in your heart, he makes it irresistible for you to just go and do those things. And historically, he's put some big callings in my heart. And historically, I've answered those calls while thinking that was all-encompassing what to do. I would carry a lot of grief from what God called me to do. And then I would treat that grief with things of this world. And from that, the enemy would pursue me even more hardcore. And you'll be able to hear the testimony of my history in another episode. But if you know my history, you'll know the enemy has definitely come after me a lot. And so what I'd like to accomplish in this podcast is help explain to all of our audience out there, men or women, that there is a certain order of how you do things in your life. And if you don't do them in that correct order, things are not going to be easy. But the more you do things with God first, the easier your life will get. And that's at least my mission with Virilis, and what I hope we can accomplish in this. And one thing God keeps putting in my heart is we want Virilis to make a significant impact in this world, and we believe that it starts with individuals. It doesn't start with going after the whole world at once. It starts with one person at a time. So if you're listening today, you might be that person that's going to make a huge impact. You just keep listening here, and we'll help you make it. And I'm going to pass it back to Charlie just for some quick closing, and then we'll have a call to action after that. Charlie, back to you, sir.
Right. So in the next couple of episodes, we're going to be going over our testimonies, how it came to where we are in our relationships with God, and how it eventually led us to get back together, because we met in community college, and over the course of few years in certain situations, we reconnected, and our relationship as friends as well as brothers has really grown significantly. So stay tuned for that. And until then, goodbye and Godspeed. See ya. Thank you for watching this episode of Virilis Podcast. If you want to listen to any more of our episodes, you could go to our website. You can also check out for any devotionals that we have that would prove useful to you or anybody else in your circle. Also, if you want to get started on a group of your own, you could download the blueprints and any other content that would prove useful to you. Until then, good luck and Godspeed.